My name is BTOL from Bristol, 26 years of age. Been rapping, I call it rapping, since about 94. Started to do it properly about 2003 really, when I joined British Intelligence. Guy called Future and Dexter Soze and DJ Rogue. Kind of made an album, we touted around to a few labels and stuff, and it all kind of fell apart. And then kind of went off the scene for a little bit, about 18 months, and hooked up with Jagos. Made something's what we've done. It's done quite well. Now trying to sort out a few live projects. Still trying to rap a bit. Got a thing called a name that I can't say on a child's website, with a guy called Milo, who's part of the Swamps as well, and just keep on keeping on really. Trying to get more music out there and just enjoy it. Trying to have a bit of fun with it.
Days and days when I gave the days, I'm hating the stage, trying to make a raise. Take what I made, I just break the face. I'm already play my ace in space. I am ACA.
Why did I become involved with hip hop? I always remember, like, as a kid, I used to get past like these TDK tapes of like Gangstar and all this stuff, like from a few of my mates from like St. Paul's, and then it was always quite alien back then, because obviously everyone rapped with an American accent, and even like the British stuff, like people rap with a bit of an American slang and stuff like that. And then one day someone passed me a tape that had Better Late Than Never by 3 PM on there, and it was the first time I ever heard someone who was using the vernacular that I was familiar with in Bristol, using that kind of slang and also like a familiar accent, and then it kind of went from there. I thought, maybe I can try doing this. So I used to go into the library at school and sit down and try and write my rubbish little rhymes about, I don't know, about anything really, about stupid things, my colouring book or whatever. and then kind of I don't know, it was nice. I mean, in terms of like nowadays, it's nice to have a voice. It's nice to think that people listen to you a little bit. Even if it is like, something like this, if you've got 50 kids here, like of a younger age, and just to maybe connect with them for like that 20 minutes is quite nice. I mean, I don't do it to make money now, or to kind of dreams of getting signed to a big label. I think that's a bit defunct these days, and the business model's so bad anyway. But just try and get out to as many people as possible, and just enjoy it.
Ain't nothing like the kiss in the summer sun split, and the mother uplift in the summer's not love, and the mixture of other fun. Eyes fixed on your honey bun, twist in the summer dump, kick a little spin till it drips and the colours run. Cause as kids will the drummers some, we go middles to mid-drifts a fit like a cover, but to come along get cool in the midst of such a summer song. Rugged tea, bumping reggae and roots, that's a headache to move from access of a scribe, but not ready to prove. Chilling from 10 to noon, cause of breakfast and food, feeling better as soon as this relentless to prove.
I didn't really have anything available to me. I didn't have any equipment. I mean, back when I started off, when I was like 15, 16, people were still doing like pause tapes. So they pause a tape and then play again, and it used to like loop stuff up. And that was about as close to a beat as I get. I don't know. I always like the fact that, I said I get to say what I want to say. I couldn't sing, so it was the next best thing really. I don't know, it was never really kind of like a thought out thing. It just kind of, it was quite a natural experience. And seeing other people around me who were doing it as well, like I said, and in the years since my youth, like kind of Bristol's kind of got a really, really strong, not necessarily a really, really strong scene, because I think that might be a little bit misleading, but there's a lot of people who are active. And there's a slight difference there. Like the infrastructure and support perhaps isn't there where it should be, but we've got lots of really talented people, like really good MCs, really good beat makers, and like I couldn't really escape it when I was at school, and so it was can't beat him, join him. So.
Hate the lazy day, hate the haze, I blaze the baby stay, I'm fade away. I hate the way it takes you say, or maybe rain. And death view's the best view, used to pave a lane. Apart from your ass on the day to day. Now the road is ours, throwing bars. What I know, I hold the cards, so I play, show my scars for too long. I try to hold.
I would say the UK scene wasn't anywhere near as popular as the US scene when you know, as a younger guy. There were still people like, you know, there was like Wild Bunch and 3PM and things in terms of Bristol. You know, in terms of nationally, it was like people like Hijack, things like that. But you know, it just wasn't as accessible. The British music wasn't, you know, you could perhaps, that you like I said, you get some like tapes kind of come through to Bristol from like someone's cousins, brothers, uncle in Camden or whatever. But you know, like there wasn't as much UK music, especially like hip hop, back in those days. Whereas now, you know, it's not necessarily on level pegging, but it's so immediate now. You know, you can get stuff. You can get stuff from places in Bristol, or you can get stuff. You know, like it's a lot more accessible. But yeah, definitely back when I was younger, it was a lot more US orientated than it was UK.
Just try and respect it. I'm sure you guys are hectic, but you just don't understand the lies that you reflected. So you maintain all the bugs in your mainframe, calling me blood when we ain't even in the same thing. Say what's wrong with words? What's wrong is that you're wrong the verbs, long to be of the herd, and now you're getting on my nerves, babe. That is two twos are better than that loose roots. Forget the S, you let a real dread to use.
I think the thing that's always stuck with me is that it's a music of escapism. It's like when you look back at the Bronx, it was about a community coming together. People who didn't necessarily have much, like whether you're talking about material things, they didn't have much. And if you're talking about representation, if you're talking about a voice, they didn't have that either. And I think that it was community coming together. You know, if you look at like jams and stuff back in those days, like people, you know, one person used to bring a turntable, another person used to bring a turntable, one person would bring like an amp, and you know, it's like the whole community used to come together, and it was just about escapism. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of getting away from the situation they were in at that time. I think, you know, now it's more about being quote unquote real, which I think is a bit of a shame, because you know that becomes a pastiche and it becomes, you know, something else entirely. But like for me, it was always about escapism. It was always about having a voice. And you know, if you look back to, you know, Rapper's Delight, for instance, one of the first singles that kind of ever had commercial success in terms of like hip hop. You know, there's people who were rapping about their Mercedes and, you know, about doing something with Lois Lane. Do you know what I mean? And you know those are people who they didn't have a Mercedes, but it was good in relation to party music. People used to go and have a jam or whatever, and so I think it kind of got lost a little bit in the 90s. Everyone was trying to be really deep and prosaic and real and this and that. And I think now we're kind of coming out at the other end of it. I think grime's really helped with that. And in terms of it's like, you know, like I don't think grime would have started without hip hop. It's definitely, you know, like grime is more UK hip hop to me than quote unquote UK hip hop is. If that makes sense. It's a more distinctive British sound. You know, it comes from British music rather than it just being US music, if that makes sense. And now they kind of grime branched off from hip hop, but now you can see them converging again a little bit more. So, you know, getting more electronic kind of club oriented beats. So people like Foreign Beggars, I mean, like they're doing stuff with noisier, like drum and bass producers, dubstep producers, like grime garage producers. And you know, it's kind of taking it back to the party music again. So hopefully it'll be a bit more up tempo, a bit more positive, and a bit more fun. So I can have a dance. As a child, the cultural side I kind of saw it going on, but it was always kind of alien to me, and it wasn't until my later teens that I became more part of the culture, if that makes sense. I've always been fascinated with like graffiti. Being an MC, you know, I couldn't do anything without DJs as well, and like, you know, it's something I still love to this day. You know, I think back when just prior to when I kind of started, it was always about representing all of the elements. So you had to b-boy a little bit, you had to know how to mix a little bit, you'd rap or toast or whatever, and also you do a bit of graph, and like, so I kind of started off doing a little bit of everything, but it was only ever the rapping got me more attention, and and I don't know, like I said, it just felt like it was a more true expression without trying to, you know, sound all arty about it. So yeah, I've always enjoyed graph culture. you know, like I said, DJing, b-boying especially as well, like, you know, a few of my really good friends and like people I'm in vertebrae with, like Awkward and like Smurf and people like that, really, really good, you know, recognised breakdancers. And so, you know, it's always been around me, but I think, you know, it's different now to when it was, you know, it used to be more of a culture thing, whereas now it's kind of more of a music thing. You know, but things like this kind of show, like this XLR event kind of show that, you know, there's still the cultural element there. There's still people who are trying to kind of do things, kind of, I don't want to say like help people, because it sounds really like, you know, people like downtrodden, whatever. But, you know, try about communities coming together. Like things like this in Knowle West, you know, you couldn't have had something like this like 5 years ago. Back when I was living in Bedminster, you know, I used to come up here and it was a very, very different thing. And I think it's great in that terms that the culture's come to a level that, you know, we can share things like this with people who aren't necessarily part of the hip hop culture that I recognise. But you know, it's still all part and parcel of the same thing, really. I think it's very significant. I think that if you're talking about hip hop culture again, you know, it's kind of always been in areas where people are perhaps, like I said, quote unquote disadvantaged, where you know, people don't necessarily have the opportunities that they do in other areas. And, you know, like Knowle West, growing up in Bristol, Knowle West has always had like a reputation for being a problem area. But then again, you know, there are a lot of problem areas in Bristol. And I think it's a great idea to have something like this. I think, you know, again, like hip hop culture 10, 15 years ago was more associated with the black youth. And now, you know, it's changed again. Like a lot more, you know, white guys getting more involved. Like a lot of people, a lot of different like races and creeds are getting involved with it. And to have something like something like this here, I think is a really good idea. And it's, you know, it's about inclusion more than anything. You know, like I coming here today, like seeing this huge building like sticking out in the middle of Knowle West. You know, that was positive in itself. And then to have something like this going on inside of it and giving kids the opportunity to kind of come in, see that maybe, you know, like there's quite a stigma attached to hip hop about it being a violent music or whatever, and to have this, to be able to approach people like myself or other artists, and to have people here who are like friendly, smiling faces, and yet still under the banner of hip hop. So I mean, it's going to change people's conceptions, and I think that's the most important thing. I think to like hip hop nowadays is to change people's conception of it and kind of say, well, you know, there is a violent side to it, and that's always going to exist because that always exists in life. But you know, it should represent everything. It should represent our world as a whole. And, you know, so there can be fun hip hop, and there can be hip hop, you know, about pulling girls or whatever, and you know, because that's life, and that's what hip hop should represent.
Unorthodox, rapping with the boring lot. Grew up your mother with the horses, while you're forced to watch the war. Cause always thought the course I blocked to touch so much more than you saw respond.
I think that's the main myth surrounding hip hop is violent music. If you look back at kind of the history of like breakdancing and stuff, that came about to stop violence. It was instead of people having a fight or shooting each other, you know, people would dance instead. And you know, it was always about kind of taking that away from hip hop. And so if you look at the history of it, it's always been something that's just fiercely kind of positive within communities, but yet because it's presented to people outside of those communities as something that's dark or violent or whatever, then I think, you know, like I said, people really misconceive it. And it doesn't help that, you know, the mainstream of hip hop, you know, you're talking about the 50 Cents and whatever, and, you know, it's cool, you know, I can listen to it, but you know, it's always just plows one alley. It's like, yeah, it's about shooting people and selling drugs and things like that. And like I said, that stuff happens, and that's cool, but it'd be nice if the representation was greater. You know, if the infrastructure supported people, like the industry supported people who were perhaps making more positive music, or just different music, you know, different hip hop. I think like I was saying before, like grime to me is part and parcel of what hip hop is, and yet until like very recently, you know, that wasn't represented in terms of mainstream music until people started to, you know, people like Tingy Strider, like N-Dubs, whatever, they came from like a grime background, like Wiley and Dizzy Rascal, who they've had to change what they are in order to be accepted kind of in the mainstream. So they started making dark, violent music, and people were kind of intrigued by it, but then it was like, oh no, you can't be part of the system. But as soon as they started making the more up-tempo, happy music, then, you know, people were more accepting of it. And I think, you know, that's maybe a lesson for kind of for everyone is to kind of say, you know, like I said, it can exist, but you need to be more rounded person. We as individuals need to be more rounded, and therefore, you know, the whole scene as a result of that will become more rounded in the end.
So Westlife was on it.
Okay, all right. You can get Something's What We've Done album with Jagos on iTunes. Also got some stuff with Mr. Loop on there, Eva Lazarus. Got an album dropping at the end of February with a guy called Milo from the Swamps. There'll be a free download, so check Facebook.com/BTOL Bristol for that one. And also myspace.com/Jagos and BTOL. And just put my name in Google, B''TOL, and you'll find something, and no doubt something for free. So, peace.
Nice little zoom.